Mandy Aubry from Songtrust. How are you, Mandy?
Very well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure, of course. Thank you for being here with me. I work as a licensing manager at Kanji Music, and alongside Mandy, today we're going to go through all the basic and advanced steps that everybody should know about the music publishing sector. But before we dive into the topic, I will kindly ask you, if you don't mind, to introduce yourself and Songtrust.
No, of course not. As you kindly said, my name is Mandy Aubry. I'm Director of Business Development for EMEA and APAC territories at Songtrust. That stands for Europe, Middle East and Africa and the Asia Pacific. Or if you turn it around, it's basically my primary territories of the world, excluding USA, Canada, Latin America and the UK and Ireland. But really, I do everything. And Songtrust is the largest global music publishing administrator. We register and collect royalties. I've worked in the music industry for over 25 years now. I worked for Roadrunner Records for a decade. So that was on the heavy metal, hard rock side, on the master side, which is not what we're talking about today. It's not music publishing from the label side. And I worked for a decade at Vintage House, which is another global music publishing administrator. The music division is no longer active. I've been at Songtrust for about, I don't know, I think nearly 4 years already, which has flown by. Songtrust is part of the Downtown Music Holdings Group. I don't know, what else would you like to know?
No, that's perfect. Thank you very much. And what a career, if I might say. Well, without further ado, I'll just jump right into the topic, today's topic. So to start off, just to, because I think not everybody that's following our panel now is really familiar with the whole music publishing sector. So really to start off, I will kindly ask you to start by exploring what music publishing really is, what are the rights involved in music publishing, and of course, who are the people involved?
So basically, anyone who is involved in writing a song should prick up their ears at music publishing. Every song has two parts to it. It has the master side and the composition side. The master side is really taking care of when your song is out there, so when it's distributed. But there's another royalty stream, which is the composition side, or who wrote the song, and that's what music publishing is about. And there's a lot of threads that flow from the composition in terms of the types of royalties that are available to collect. But the most important distinction is that we're talking about the composition. And the person who wrote the song is not always the same person who recorded it. So so that's the simple terms to define what music publishing is.
Thank you very much. As you said, it's simple, but it has all the elements that people should be aware of. And how does exactly your line of work fall compared to what you just told me? Not your own, but also Songtrust in general.
Well, personally, my job is business development, and that means that I am developing the business, and particularly in Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and Asia Pacific, trying to get the message across that there is a service like Songtrust available for anyone and everyone who wants to utilize it. And unlike other publishers or publishing administrators, we are really available for anyone and everyone. So everyone has access to our enormous global reach of pay sources. Because when a song is out there in the world, and if you think, let's say with distribution, it's being streamed, there are people streaming all around the world, then as well as the royalties from the master side, so the stream from the master recording, there's also going to be the stream, the publishing money available from that stream. So people need to have access to that. And what we're doing is we're enabling everyone to have access to their global royalties on the publishing side. So when people open an account with Songtrust, they are adding their songs, meaning the songs that were written by them. And we are then very quickly and efficiently and directly registering those songs with all the details, the metadata that's important in order to connect the composition to the recording. So not only does that comprise what the title of the song is, it also comprises who the songwriter or songwriters are. If they are affiliated to a performing rights organization, they have a unique identification number. So we're making sure that the person, the rights holder, is also connected. And we're also registering the ISRC, the International Standard Recording Code, that is registered alongside the songs. So that goes, someone adds their song to our dashboard, and within a week, it is sent out to over 60 global pay sources with all that metadata. And in turn, that means that when royalties are due to the rights holder from the use of those works, they will be efficiently tracked to the person who should be paid for that use. So that's sort of what we're doing. So, you know, my job is to keep spreading the word as we're doing today, to tell people that this exists. And Songtrust as a whole, our job is to just basically get those songs out there and the royalties in as soon as possible, keeping the fee as low as possible and the time as quick as possible from when the exploitation happens to us being able to pay the money to the rights holder.
No, absolutely. Thank you very much. And it's great information. Also, I think you've touched on a very important point, which is metadata, especially when you're dealing, when people are dealing with, it might be China, it might be Russia, any upcoming market, really, and also still in the Western market. Metadata is super important, and we need to be able to track them correctly. Have you had any experience of issues deriving from wrong metadata cataloging or such?
Well, again, I'm going to try to clarify. On the master side, there's certain metadata that's essential, right? If you want to have your song distributed, you need to provide certain tools in order for that job to be done. On the publishing side, it's the same. We obviously need the song title, and we always need to know who wrote 100% of the composition. So if you write with someone else, then they will maybe have 50%, you might have 50%. But it's the metadata that's integral for music publishing is what I touched on a minute ago, the IPI number of the writer. And in order to obtain an IPI number of the writer, because you can imagine there must be a lot of Mandy Aubrys in the world, a lot of John Smiths in the world. How do you make sure that the rights holder, John Smith, who wrote the particular song, is not mixed up with John Smith, who wrote another song? So we do that by numbers, and people affiliate to a local performing rights organization, which is often abbreviated to a PRO, or a collective management organization. Those tend to be more in Europe, but they do the same job. They're slightly different, but they offer you this unique number. So that's the very first step that any songwriter needs to do. Now, a lot of people around the world don't yet have access to a very fully functioning performing rights organization. Some of the performing rights organizations in some territories are either not yet official and approved by the official organization who says that this is a legitimate collection society, or the effectiveness of their performing rights organization is questioned. So that is one of the hurdles to having great metadata. When I just said to you that we need to have a writer, an author, who has this unique number, how does one get one? So at Songtrust, we've tried to get past that problem. We've partnered with the Irish Collection Society, IMRO, for anyone who lives outside the UK, Canada, or America. If someone lives in the IMRO is actually, it's for anyone outside USA and Canada. If you're in the USA, you can choose between the two main PROs there. So that's ASCAP or BMI. And if you're in Canada, you can affiliate with SOCAN. And for those places, you can do it directly from the Songtrust dashboard, free of charge. And it doesn't matter if you're not in Ireland. So if you're in China or Africa or India, you can affiliate. So we're making it for the first time really easy for people to just they add themselves as a songwriter to the Songtrust dashboard, and then as long as they add at least one song and they attach at least one recording, which I can talk about later, then their affiliation request will process, and it's a free service that we're able to provide. We really wanted to make sure that this was on offer because we do want to make sure that everyone everywhere in the world has access to their royalties. And we know that whilst there are some organizations that will say, well, just put the writer's name, that piece of metadata, as in the writer's full name and their unique identification number, is really integral for efficient matching and also improving metadata out there in the world. So that's the first thing. The attaching the ISRC, the recording code, to the song that is added is also something that we prioritize. So many royalties now are digital, and the digital services are very good at distributing royalties on the master side. That they are getting better on the publishing side, but we need to help them along as soon as possible because as far as I'm aware, on the master side, it is not a prerequisite to say who your publisher is and how do they need to pay the publisher. So we make sure that when we're registering our songs, we match the ISRC in the song so that when there is a use, it's absolutely clear who should be paid for it. So really the metadata for us starts with obviously the song title, the song split, and the writer names, and then and attaching the ISRC. And was that clear enough?
Yeah, it was indeed. Thank you very much. And just to further comment on that, I think, I mean, we as Kanjan and I personally work within the Chinese music industry, but again, this can be applied to any country in the world. People eventually want to get paid for their rights, and the only and best way for people to get paid is actually for them to register and catalog their metadata correctly. And they have to do so when they communicate their metadata to publishers or a PROs, and it's really important that everything is in the right place at the right moment. And also, but I think I would say, I mean, we've seen some great advancements, not only within music publishing, but in general. And I'd say the industry is trying to reach a set standard globally to help independent musicians, independent companies, and companies overall to get where they should be at this point. Have you witnessed a great advancement or like great change in the music publishing sector in the last year?
Yeah. I mean, just Songtrust itself has changed the landscape in so many ways. And I don't say that because I'm from Songtrust. I think it's a fact anyone will realize. We are able to offer education as to what music publishing is through our website to people, anyone who has the internet. This has had a significant impact. People, who I deal with, like last year or the year before, I noticed that there were more and more people from Africa who were beginning to sign up, so from Nigeria and Ghana and so on. This year, I've noticed there's been a lot more, obviously Africa has continued, but India, that I get so many people from India who want to have access to their royalties. And that's particularly interesting because, Bollywood was the leading way to get royalties historically. So those royalties on the publishing side, if I'm correct, belong to the production companies more than anyone. But there's a growing independent artist and music scene in India, and these people want to access their royalties just like everyone else. And there's a huge appetite for music in India. So this is really something that is taking off. And then in Eastern or Southern Eastern Europe, the Balkans, Albania, Croatia, places like that, again, there is a huge amount of royalties to be made in publishing, and people are seeing companies like Songtrust as being making it possible. So what I would say, first of all, is access to education, and I hope it's unbiased education about what is this music publishing royalty, we can't explain. Huh?
That's why we're here today.
Yeah, we can't explain. Sometimes I think, people are sick of this message that it's what music publishing is. But it seems like it's something that just does continue to be necessary, because people very quickly forget. They think that because they're with a distributor, that they are covered for music publishing. And only if you sign up for an add-on with your distributor will you be covered for music publishing. And to tick the box about having the add-on is something that you shouldn't do too freely. You always need to read the terms and conditions and see, does this make sense? So, so the education, and, unbiased education, access to, like I was telling you about a performing rights organization, affiliation. That's something that's really coming on nowadays. More societies are making it possible for people outside of their home territory to join their PRO. They all offer different advantages. One main advantage of being with a PRO is that you, again, try not to get too complicated, but of the publishing royalties, there are two segments. There's the publisher's collectible share and the writer's collectible share. And if you want to have access to all your royalties, you need to have access to both your publisher and writer's share. And the writer's share, even we will register the songs from Songtrust, but they will end up with writer royalties going directly to the writers that we won't touch. We won't take a fee on them, but we are directly responsible for maximizing those royalties in our collections. So that's another thing. So access to that's something that's changed. Transparency within the whole process of the collection. So it used to be that really there was either you had a traditional publishing deal, which we can talk about later, and that was something that was only offered to the few, not the many, and you would maybe sign a deal, but most people wouldn't, because it wouldn't be available for that many people, and you would, even then, you wouldn't really have access to any of the data about how you get the money, if you get any extra money at the end of the day. Nowadays there are more traditional publishing administrators. Again, we can talk about that later, but they offer maybe 3-year deals, so more independent still, you can retain your rights, but you have varying degrees of insight into what's happening. And then you have the modern music publishing administrator like Songtrust, who offers absolute transparency, where you can see you're adding your songs yourself, so there's no discrepancy about the splits, and you can see royalties as they begin to become accrued on the dashboard, and you can really get tons of detail about how those royalties have been accrued. So from which country, for which period, from what income source, and all these different sources of data, which are so interesting and useful. So that's another way music publishing has changed. Obviously, streaming has changed a lot. I think it's amazing what you've managed to do. I don't want to say it right, but Kangen,
Yeah.
as you with your with your digital collections in China, that's innovative. We can only be the best in terms of the infrastructure available in any territory. And China is still quite difficult in the offline world, but it seems that you've conquered the online world of digital royalties, which is a great starting point. And as the creators in China learn about the royalties that are available to them on the digital side, that will give them a stronger voice to fight, I hope, to the society on the offline, say, hey, look at what we're making. We need to start making it in China as well, on from film and television and all the other offline sources. So I think that's another big change. The change is that there are people around the world who are no longer willing to accept that music publishing is for the few, not the many, because people need to make a living, and it's hard enough. You need millions of streams to make that much money. So there are 3 or 4 reasons that I can probably go on and on, but feel free to ask me more if you want to know more about it.
Absolutely, they're pretty valid reasons, I would say. And also, it's something I've witnessed personally in China, but again, it can be applicable to pretty much all the countries worldwide. I think when COVID came, people suddenly realized there was a thing called music publishing. I think beforehand, of course, this doesn't apply to all the people out there, but in general, many people relied on different income sources. For example, of course, live shows and the live revenue, and then at some point that was not an option anymore for them, and so they had to realize there was something else they had to go and get money from. And I definitely I've seen a rise in music publishing in the last year and a half. Has it been the same for you?
Um, I think that it's all evolved simultaneously, and even my own experience working for Songtrust. So the pandemic began, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago already, nearly, and so that that means I'm 2 years more experienced, and then Songtrust has grown so much also in the last 4 years since I began. I mean, I was the first person outside of America to be employed for
Oh
Songtrust, and now
wow.
there's a lot more of us, and the team globally is much bigger, and I think that with that, the education, as I said, has been, what we're doing. If you just go to the Songtrust site, there's always these new webinars about this and about that. And it's not just about publishing, it's about perhaps social media and what you can do to, in your brand, all these other things you can do, and about tips and everything. So people are definitely looking for ways to maximize their royalties. And whilst the royalties from live have obviously diminished, and it's been an incredibly difficult time for everyone, they have had a chance to think, right, I've got time now, I'm at my computer more, let me sort this out. And I mean, if you won a competition, even if you won just $5 or euros or something, and then when I do the lottery, for example, then I win just €5 every time. I'm always very diligent about making sure that I go into the account and transfer the money to my account because it's mine, right? Because I've won it. I mean, I'm always paying more in how much to be possibly the big winner, but I'm making sure I'm not just leaving it. Why should I leave it? Why should the lottery company have €5 for me and I don't take it, right? So that's the mentality that people need to be aware of. Some people don't realize that there is money available for them. So that's the first hurdle. But what people really need to know is that royalties don't hang around forever. They have a sell-by date. If you don't collect your royalties within 2 to 3 years on the digital side, for example, it's going to be highly difficult to collect those royalties in the future. You need to try to work in real time. So music publishing is not something to say, oh, I'll do it later. And also now it's possible with deals like Songtrust, for example, because our minimum exploitation period, meaning the amount of time that a song should remain with us, is just 12 months. You can already get your song registered. Maybe you release it a little bit later, but you can add the ISRC pre-release. So you could maybe say set it up 3 months before your release, so it's sitting pretty in all the global societies. Then you release it, and then if you suddenly become bigger and you think I want to be with a different sort of publishing arrangement, you are free to take the title away, to leave Songtrust after the 12 months that the song has been with us. Most people don't want to, but how wonderful is it to know that you are not tied into anything and that you have the freedom of choice, So you can use a service like Songtrust for the here and now, and it will also give you a better insight into the royalties that you're generating. And just because it is self-service, we have a great support team as well, of course, but because it is self-managed, the platform, this is also a great beginner's practical education to what is the bare necessity that I need to do in order to collect my music publishing royalties. And it sounds like there's a whole checklist. It's not that difficult to do. And Songtrust luckily makes it affordable as well. So yeah. Sometimes, just so you know, on the back claim side, you can back claim a bit further for television and radio, for example, offline, but it varies according to the country. And in some countries, even though you might have the biggest film release, for example, in Russia, but the chance of getting that money are going to be slim. I think China's the same, right? It's quite hard to get the royalties due. You could be all over a film that everyone's gone to see, but the chance of getting the money from the film are still sadly, less. So, yeah, lots to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd say that's a great piece of advice. So people, if you're listening, just make sure you're going to collect your royalties before they expire. And no, that's definitely super important. And also, I think something else really important to me, and I think to our audience as well, is agreements in general. I mean, companies like Hangen or Songtrust are pretty flexible, but we come from an industry where traditionally we only had a few agreements that were available to the public, And we started, like, the industry started with the classic publishing agreement, and sub publishing agreement came into place. Now we have co-publishing agreement, we have publishing administration agreement. So what's really the difference between all these types of agreements? And if you had to give a tip, or like several tips to people looking at an agreement for the first time, what would your tip be?
Okay. A traditional publishing deal, the most important take home is that a traditional publishing deal normally means that you are giving up some of your rights in perpetuity, so forever, on the composition, in return for an advance, for what one could call added value. So the advance, of course, they will pay, but that will need to be paid back. It's not like it just comes and, that means the way it's, well, paid back in terms of the publisher will collect the royalties, and they won't start paying you anything until you've recouped at least that advance. And it's quite hard to recoup sometimes because the fee that they also take is higher than an admin deal, which we'll talk about in a minute. So let's say if you get an advance of 100,000, and there's also a fee, a percentage that the publisher is taking, then you'll actually be recouping, would it be 150,000? I don't know if my maths is good enough, but you see what I mean? It's like it takes longer to recoup it because you're not using the full amount gross, gross. So without getting myself in hot water. So you always have to ask yourself, first of all, so if you're offered a publishing deal, a traditional publishing deal, you have to get a lawyer or someone with a good legal background to look through the paperwork. You need to think, what is it that I'm signing? Am I giving up all my catalog? So am I giving up to them everything that I've written, past, present, and future? So, and for how long? What are the fees? You will also, I'm going to see, sorry.
Bless you.
Excuse me. Thank you. There's also something that's quite, they will offer creative services, and this is very alluring, which could be that they may arrange co-writes. They may put you in the studio with someone, which is amazing. It could really elevate your career. They may also work at procuring sync. So saying, okay, your song would be great in this particular product's advert, and they might put your song forward, and then it could also become amazing. But also you will almost certainly have no say in how your song is used. So if, let's say, I always say, if you're a vegetarian and you could find yourself in a fast food meat selling advert, and you'll have nothing, or you could find yourself in a fast fashion brand's advert or anything like that, and there's nothing that you can do about it. And also, like even a big advance, you can make a lot more money on the admin side if you keep your rights, but only on the admin side. So the other sort of, wait, let me just go back a minute. There's also a co-publishing deal, which means that you will do what I just said in the last part, but you will keep some of your publishing for yourself. But the traditional publisher will almost certainly want to administer that share as well. So it's all in the same package, but you will have a little bit more of everything yourself, but it's still, you just have to say, what is the value? So you have to think, what if they didn't like me anymore, or my band was not famous anymore? Would I be allowed to go with someone else, or am I stuck with a party who doesn't care about my music? And I've got no more, I've spent my advance, I have no more income stream from my music. So that's the thing. Then there's a more traditional admin deal. The most important distinction there is that you retain your rights. So you're not forsaking any of the composition rights to anyone. And those deals will probably be three years. The fee will be 15 to 20, 25%. Some will offer creative services, others won't. Most of the more traditional admin deals will say that they want to be in charge of passive sync, which means they won't procure sync maybe, but they will still administer. If someone says, I know I want to use your song for this ad, and that they are the administrators, then they will just clear it. You can't clear it yourself. Those deals also tend not to be for everyone. They're selective, and you have to look at each for its merit. And what they're offering in terms of added value, but of course they're not as you're not as committed as you would be for a publishing deal. And then there's companies like Songtrust, which I said at the beginning, which are immensely flexible. We're paying out much more frequently than the traditional publisher. Our fee is low. You can choose if you want to add one song or lots of songs. You can have complete control of your sync. But I'm going to play devil's advocate here because, you know, administrators like Songtrust are collecting on what's happening, right? So if nothing's happening, there's nothing to be collected. If you are just putting your songs out there to be distributed, you know, and you think, wow, there's been like, I don't know, maybe 10,000 streams of my song. It still doesn't unfortunately amount yet to a lot of money. So if you want to elevate the activity of your songs, one way to do it would be with a traditional publisher, but nowadays there's so many other ways that you can do it, which I'm much more in favor of course, by building a team of people who can really help you and who are committed, but you're not tied into anything forever. So that could be anything from a marketing team, a PR team, maybe your label, your just anyone, a sync company, a third-party sync company. It takes a little bit more structure. A great manager can really help as well, or a tour agent who, you know, all these are difficult. So you would have to work a bit harder. But yeah, these are just some of the things, but don't ever sign anything without a lawyer. And as much as you love your parents, don't just rely on your mum or dad to do it either, because they also might not have the expertise. I mean, I was speaking to someone from, I think it was from Turkey, and her parents had looked through her first publishing agreement and told her to sign it when she was 17, but she'd signed off all those songs forever really early on, and she lost a lot of her freedom in that regard. So yeah, so there's a lot to think about, you know?
Absolutely, and I'd say agreements are the base upon which everything else is built. And it's something that can bound people for years, several years. So it's really important to get them right. And please, people, listener or audience, always seek for legal advice if you're not able to interpret an agreement yourself, because it's really important to understand what the full terms and conditions are. No, thank you very much, Mandy. Now, I would like to ask you something about the PROs, and specifically, I'll start with an example. I'm Italian, I come from Italy, and there has been a case where our national PRO, which is called CI, has been in conflict with a private-owned company, which is Sundrift, because allegedly CI was not doing their job properly. And so there has been a case where, for the first time, at least to the best of my knowledge, a private company jumped in and actually perform a PRO's job better than the PROs itself. So, given your expertise in the field and also your experience on the field, would you say that this might be a recurring case, or was more of an isolated case? Is it something that people should pay attention to, or is it usually
Well, I
fine?
think it was like when we all heard about what happened at CI, it was like, that just goes to show it's not just something that happens in, I don't know, places, far off places, right? It can happen in continental Europe. We've had situations with the Greek Collection Society, AP, that ended up disintegrating, and Sagai in Spain was also for a while barred from the official society because of some things that went on. This is probably the activities of the few rather than the many at the PRO, the Performing Rights Organization, but absolutely there are a lot of issues. But the thing is, it depends what your infrastructure is for collecting your global royalties. If you decide that you are just going to register with a performing rights organization, that's all you're going to do, then you're putting all your eggs in one basket, and you're subject to the efficiency and the strengths and weaknesses of that society. I think it's proven that no domestic society is able to collect the global royalties out there in this day and age efficiently. They will always be focusing on the domestic royalties, and then some of them, or many of them, will also be below par at digital still. That's why you're separate. In China, you're going direct, and Songtrust and many other publishers go outside of the collection societies for online royalties, so that's royalties on the digital side, and collect via services who are dealing directly with the digital services themselves and pay us much more frequently, and we pay our clients, so we don't even collect from the societies ourselves. So there are definitely strengths and weaknesses. everywhere. But if you're with someone like Songtrust, you don't really need to worry. You need to just be sure that you're with someone as a writer who will get you your writer share, because we will be responsibly collecting all the global royalties on the publishing side, which will, as I said before, automatically generate your writer share. But I would argue that if in your territory you have a feeling or you've heard that the collection society is not yet global and efficient, what you don't want is to join one of those societies as a writer for the world, because that means that the writer share of royalties that should get, which is half on the performance side, right? There's a lot. It's questionable if even the other societies will send to that society the writer share, because if that society doesn't pay the others, there'll be no, if there's no reciprocity, whatever the word is, if they don't pay each other, then half your money from all the good work we're doing won't reach you because of this issue. Okay, so I strongly recommend that you consider whether you join your local PRO for the world as a writer or just for your territory. And then you can join someone like IMRO or a different collection society through Songtrust, or you can make a choice of any other one in the world that is reputable to collect the rest of your royalties. But you don't need to be as afraid as the CI Italy example that you gave, Giancarlo, because you know, it's about getting the writer royalties. That's what matters if you're using a publisher. And I should say as well that if you're with a performing rights organization means that you have access to your performance royalties, and there's mechanical royalties. And I don't want to scare people with all these different sources, but there's a lot of money to be made on the mechanical side as well. And with a stream, which is like digital royalties on the publishing side, they generate both the mechanical and the performance elements. You need to have access to both. If you're only with a performing rights organization, you won't have access to your mechanical. So again, someone like Songtrust can help you with that, or you would need to join the mechanical society. And in many countries, there's not that option to collect the mechanicals efficiently.
Yeah, hopefully that's been just an isolated case and it won't repeat anywhere else in the world.
I think it's okay now. I think that Italy's fine now. CI is back to normal, so you know, it's good.
Yeah, perhaps it's all for the best. Perhaps it's the process they needed to go through to get to the point where they are now. So thank you very much once again for your great answer. And yeah, unfortunately, this amazing interview is coming to an end. So just to wrap this up, I would like now to ask you, what are your best 3 tips for our audience out there? It can be anything, you know, what, you know, from agreements to you know, what company these people could be affiliated with. And we already know the answer is Songtrust.
No. I wouldn't say just Songtrust, because you need to look at everything and see whether it suits you. Songtrust is one of the great options out there, and you should just, anything that's out there, please read around it. If you want to sign with Songtrust, that's fantastic. So, but yeah, so I would say 3 tips. The first tip is don't be scared to get started. Just, you know, you need to just get started. It's very important. So in the same way that you many other aspects of one's life, you know that when you want to get started, you need to do X, Y, Z. So you're writing songs and your songs are out there. You have to get your music publishing setup sorted out. At the bare minimum, you could join a performing rights organization so that your name is out there and you have your unique identification number, and then you can have your songs registered. So that's the first thing. Secondly, it's very important to reliably document the splits of the songs you write. So if you're writing all by yourself, then that's okay. You can keep a record on an Excel sheet, and only when they go out there in the world, then you can register them, and there should be no quibble as to them being yours or not. But you can also contact your local copyright society to find out how you can copyright your works, so there's no dispute that you wrote them. But if you're writing with other people, it's all very well people saying, let's do it later, I'm your friend. Best friends now will not always be the case. Use a split sheet or find a way to document who wrote what. Again, don't put that off. The Songtrust website has a lot of information about these things. So you can download a split sheet, on the Songtrust website. You can also download the Modern Guide to Music Publishing, which is a Songtrust ebook. It's free, it's short, it's quite simple. That also goes through publishing in more detail. So those are two things. So don't leave it too late. Get started with it. I can't remember what the first one was, but what was the first one? Anyway, but the last one would be just start growing your team and, trying to get your network and be nice to people and respectful and don't just think about today, think about tomorrow and the next years, of your music career. But there's only three things. I could probably say a lot of other things.
No, these are great tips. Thank you very much for sharing them. I'm sure there will be plenty more, but unfortunately, that's the time we have for today. And and also going back to the concept of education and educating people, I think that's what we did today, pretty much. And I'm sure our audience definitely knows more about music publishing, and I'm sure our interview and this panel will make more people want to jump on board to start getting creative. So again, thank you very much for being
Oh,
here
thanks for
with me
having me.
today. Also, thanks everybody for watching. And just a quick reminder, in case you have any question or you just want to get in touch with either me or Mandy, you can find both of us in the delegates directory. Stay tuned for the upcoming panels and enjoy the rest of your IMX.